Hello, this is Caleb Barney with Russell Real Estate, and today I want to go over why you shouldn't only value cash flow when looking at an investment property. So I pulled up a sold property in the MLS. This actually just recently closed in January, late January of 2022, and this is in the zip code 44105. The reason why I brought this up was basically people will ask me about the 1% rule or the 2% rule as far as collecting rents. So basically saying my monthly rent is going to be 2% of the purchase price. So in this case, if they bought it for $45,000, hopefully they could rent this thing out for $900 a month in order to meet the 2% rule. And while that would be very strong for a cash flow or from a cash flow perspective, there's a couple of reasons why I don't think it makes the most sense. So not that there's anything wrong with this property per se, but it's mostly just the area that I would be concerned with. And it's, again, I'm not even looking at safety or anything like that. I'm looking more so at the demographics of the area. So when I go to 44105, I look at the estimated population over time. And basically, from 2005 to 2018, so over a 13-year time period, they went from 37,500 residents to 25,750. So they lost about 12,000 people, or about a third of their population, over a 13-year time period. So I never want to see population decreases in a particular area, but especially that drastic. Because again, losing 12,000 people over 10 years or 13 years might not be a big deal if you have 1 million people there. But when you have 37,000 to start, that's definitely not a good sign, because ultimately a lot of what drives prices is going to be supply and demand. And that's for appreciation for your home, so the house value going up, but also for rentals. So when looking at the real estate in 44105, the other thing that I like to look at is housing occupancy. And while 38% of people who live in that zip code do rent, you could actually see that 25% of the households are vacant. So really, a renter has the pick of the litter as far as where they want to go. So you're going to have to over improve your property in order to make it as desirable as possible and to stand out amongst the 25% vacancy rate for the housing occupancy there. That property, sure, maybe you could get $900 to meet the 200 or the 2% rule, but realistically speaking, for a 3-bedroom home, renting it out in there in that zip code should basically bring you about $750 per month. So you have about $1,050 between the 500 to 750 range, and almost 1,100 people paying between $750 and $1,000 for their rental expenses there. But then the other things to take into consideration when looking at an investment property are things like your capital expenses. A roof on a, in this case, $50,000 property versus the roof on a $150,000 or $250,000 property isn't going to vary too drastically, and that's probably your biggest thing between your roof and your siding. But your air conditioning unit, your furnace, hot water tank, your refrigerator, your range, dishwasher, things like that, those are relatively fixed costs. I know they're not actual fixed costs, but they're going to cost the same for a $50,000 property versus a $250,000 property. So relatively speaking, you're paying way more for the mechanicals and appliances on a property like this than you would be for a $250,000 property. The home also won't appreciate as much, as I mentioned, because of the supply and demand and the population decreasing. And then you're just going to have higher tenant turnover too. So when they do leave, you're going to have a longer vacancy period because there are so many houses available for rent. And then you're going to have to pay to repair and fix it up and make it in tip-top condition. So that's why I think it's not always prudent to go for a 2% rule.